The madness has concluded. As expected, most, if not all of us, came out unsatisfied. Not because the chaos was missing from the tournament, because don't worry, there was plenty of that. However, many of us came out upset because our own team laid such an egg that it laid the foundation of what you can expect going into the summer season when your baseball team inevitably does the exact same thing. Before we uncover our very long list of losers of the madness, let me uncover some winners of which you can find over at PrizePicks, the sponsor of today's video. PrizePicks is the #1 sports app and the best possible location for those who want to win big. Being in the cusp of the NBA and MLB season, there's hardly a better time than now to sign up. PrizePicks is available in over 40 states, including Florida, Texas, and California, among others. You can choose from a wide variety of different stats on a daily basis, including shots, rebounds, assists, and just about anything else you'd like. You can also mark your picks for the future, including next year's college basketball champion. Just gonna go ahead and mark down Illinois to lose for some free cents off the bat. There's deals and promos open daily for your convenience, and you can get $50 in lineups just by placing your first $5 lineup. Just enter the promo code HMA to get started. The link is in the description. Always remember to play responsibly. Anyway, back to the chaos. What a way to begin. 39 minutes of two teams shitting themselves and then locking in on the final minute. But it ends like most NC State moments always do.
I'm here, down to 2. Mark for the lead. Oh, he hits another one.
Defeat from the jaws of victory. Cooked worse than Shendo Weaver's hairline. Speaking of hairlines, Will Wade is gone too. Sucks to suck. You're welcome for Gainey though. The Horsies set themselves up as nothing more than a stepping stool for the Cinderella run. At least the Redhawks can now claim they earned something out of their undefeated regular season. Despite the memes in favor of Miami of Ohio, SMU now serves as a meme in themselves for allowing this to happen. Thanks for keeping Auburn out. This is basically the national championship for these two schools. Whichever one is fortunate enough to be a winner will end their season here because whatever they face afterwards will disembowel them. However, Howard held on for just long enough to claim their first tournament win in school history. And they did it before Nebraska. And they weren't the only ones. Prairie View A&M were additionally looking for their first win in the dance, and they showed their efforts in the second half. Hell of a turnaround after a 5-27 season. Lehigh coming short of that goal is nothing to be disappointed about. You're just like the nerd who's working part-time at a photographer in a sorority. You're just happy to be there. We all remember when you trolled Duke back in 2012. Speaking of which, doesn't look like they'll be repeating that. They damn well tried though. Never thought this super team would be playing drunk in their very first game, but here we are again. You better be thankful for Siena's refusal to rotate, otherwise you would have received a golden ticket to Squidtard Circus for the most colorful of clowns. Maybe you learned a thing about looking ahead, but you'll probably forget it by next week. What a moment in time for TCU fans to be here. I don't mention Ohio State fans because A, they're seasonal fans who only appear during the fall, and B, their IQ is equal to the decision to use a timeout just to piddle dick around and let TCU do the funny.
He gets it inside. Edmonds for the lead. He's got it.
Blowing it at the end is what they do best. You guys were down by 15 at halftime. Nobody else can come down from 15 points or more at the half, right? Whether you like it or not, the Red Storm has arrived. And just like any other Red Storm, it's bound to fall over somewhere along the way. Northern Iowa can at least pride themselves on winning the Missouri Valley on their way back to trying to rebuild a team for next year. Silly you thinking you'll still have one after the season's over. Despite how funny it would be for Kansas to be the one to shit the bed at a high seed, Cal Baptist had only played one other Quad 1 opponent, and they got nuked off the face of the earth when they did. If anything, the Jayhawks should be nervous about how they pissed off 5 minutes too early and let the newcomers climb all the way back and make it competitive. Give your flowers to Darren Peterson. Huh? What's that? South Florida just whiffed another 3? Say it ain't so! Louisville, too, nearly became victims of their own success, letting the Bulls surge right back into the game at the end. But if nothing else, they came away surviving and thriving because the other side had their best guy go 0 for 11 for threes. There's noticeable gaps now within the Cardinals with the loss of starting point guard Michael Brown Jr., but take the miracles where you can get them. You finally made it past the first day. Welcome to the FBS, shitheads. Get used to this because I promise you it's going to become the standard in due time. Sure, it was one of their best years in program history, but it might have been a little bit better if you snuck into the NIT not knowing what the outcome was going to be.
Auburn wins their first NIT championship.
Okay, you know what? I take it back. Tom Izzo, welcome back to March. For now. Give the Knights credit for keeping us engaged until the end. But no comeback is complete without a lead change, and you never got there. Scoring from the opposing team trying to jump on a defensive rebound doesn't do you much good in that regard. Take that plastic cup Mick Cronin brought and pour one out for Sky Clark's tooth, missing just like their football program. Furman has a reputation for being the spoiler that no team wants to face, but they too forgot that this moment in time is where Dan Hurley's squad leans forward on the gaming chair. Terrace Reed alone would have been enough. The rest is just abuse. But as expected, Furman didn't get out before letting the future Quad 1 teams know that they are real shit. Don't you ever play with the Paladins. Rod Strickland has done a great job rebuilding this program, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. Credit as in taking his Short Island squad and being put in front of a firing squad, but for all to see in the NCAA tournament. Allow my cat Smokey to display how much the general public cared about this game after the first 5 minutes. Well said, Smokey. Generational run here by the Mountain West in this version of the dance. Both teams went blow for blow for the duration, up until crunch time, where the Wildcats ran out of juice and Utah stayed pounds. 3 points in the final 6 minutes isn't exactly going to cut it in any tournament match, not even an exhibition one. Maryland fans hate watch successful. Oh, excuse me, did I forget to mention that Furman isn't the only consistent spoiler in March? Chase Johnston lay dormant for the entire season, only to pull off the greatest ha-has so far in the tournament.
He got inside again, but he missed the shot. High Point's got the rebound and the outlet to Johnston. And his first two-pointer of the year.
Along with Wisconsin fans' hope for a future where they're good in sports, there goes everyone's brackets. Only a handful remain due to the Badgers once again getting beat down early. They don't call them the Badgers because they're good. Same time next year? All hail pig time. We kind of had a feeling that the SEC champion wouldn't be a one and done at the bare minimum. 11 is the magic number, I suppose, as the Piggies went up that amount off the tip and never looked back. Darius Acuff Jr. will live on in many dreams of the Tyson chicken base tonight. Too bad they have to rethink their strategy because just like everyone else, they too thought Wisconsin wasn't gonna Wisconsin. See, I take partial responsibility for this. I had the Cougars once again, just like last year, making the Final Four in my bracket. Couldn't have ever anticipated their entire team falling apart, but they already have. AJ DeBansta is the team. Texas has got more than one guy who plays ball, so it was never gonna work out. It's always them in St. Mary's, man. Why do we keep believing in these guys? What the hell is it with Kennesaw State's refusal to show up for sports ball the moment they aren't playing their conference brethren anymore? I know Gonzaga is a 3 seed, but I'm sure you'll come to find out soon that you had a shot. In fairness, ref ball wasn't your friend either. Better watch my mouth before I too become a UConn fan. Grahamite continues to be elite, but the loss of Braden Huff is a clear setback they're going to have to find a way to adapt around. If it's anything like this game, it won't be pretty next time. Don't tell me we're about to witness another unexplainable Miami postseason run. Starting the run beating down on a team in what's basically their home environment based on the crowd does well in making comparisons. But Missouri was f***ed 7 ways from Selection Sunday. Whenever anyone speaks about your size advantage over your opponent, especially if an analyst does it, it's the calling card to pack the bags for Cancun on the spot. Dennis Gates Masterclass. Well, I mean, at least they made it? A well-made illustration of what would happen if you put an alien invasion up against a Lincoln Riley defense. One side did whatever the hell they wanted to with absolutely zero pushback through the entire 40-minute raid. Number 2 offense playing the number 319 defense. That should have said it all. Braden Smith became the Division I career leader in assists as he runs his victory lap in preparation for what's to come. And they didn't even need a million fouls to do it. Remember that one time you too thought this team was competent after beating Cal early in the year? Yeah, turns out they also suck. You just suck slightly less than they do. If nothing else, at least you lost to a power conference team this time. Bad news is you lost to a team at the very left side of the trapezoid of excellence. It's Iowa after all, so should we really be surprised that they're the slowest moving squad in the tournament? Tank conference in its prime is what I say to that. Speaking of Clemson's disappointment, look who's back as a 12 seed. Unfortunately for all parties, you couldn't do the same thing this time. They did, however, get Vandy fans under some sort of cardiac struggle, kind of like McNeese's team at the worst possible time, giving Vandy their first conference win since the last time Kentucky meant anything in this sport. Tyler Tanner locks in like that again, and it could be trouble for everyone. Sing it on the ground, sing it in the air, or sing it in the cornfields. Nebraska has done the unthinkable and finally won a tournament game. And we thought it was a legacy moment when they finally reached bowl eligibility. Troy's entire game plan was shut down from the start. Quite the turn of events. Pryce Sandford can expect a statue in his honor somewhere around the Community Engagement Center. Speaking of Nebraska and football, here's a blue blood of the basketball sport whose best days are behind them. Case in point can be located right now.
Here's Hill. Step back, Jay. Oh, yeah!
This moment in UNC history was brought to you by a blown 19-point lead in Hubert Davis's peak slip. And what did they get for said incompetence? Glad you asked. So what you're telling me is that the solution to your problems as a pro league has-been who has zero head coaching experience at the college level? Huh. All we're missing is the 20-year-old gold digger, and we've got ourselves a tar pit Twilight Zone. Looks like someone else peaked at the right time as well. The Quakers can solve all your ailments after all. TJ Power, who is normally the savior of their squad who brought them here in the first place, ended the night with a whopping 6 points. Next point gets you a free milkshake, so I've heard. Better luck next century. So safe to say at this point, it's time to put St. Mary's in the same branch of tournament success as Clemson. They simply serve as a placeholder for the other team until proven otherwise. I'd sooner pick a mid-major against the top seed of the land. The odds are somehow even lesser than when we had to battle against Buckyball. They've got so much in common with Clemson's football squad as their basketball team. They can't stop turning the ball over. This serves as a reminder that Idaho exists as both a team and a state. But the more they do this, the less likely you'll be to remember on a yearly basis. Houston clearly had their last game in the tournament on their minds, because they're coming in hungry for revenge against somebody. Not sure who, but somebody. Any more beatdowns of this vicinity, and Notre Dame might start crying about how they're not included in this dance either. I sure hope they gave Howard some cookies for at least showing up. They arguably put up a better fight against the Wolverines than most who challenged their dominance. Gotta give them credit where it's worth as a team that just happy to be there. Unfortunately, Howard Isley Jr. is like Samaj Morgan to the Michigan football squad, actively working against his own team. But you did beat the spread, so we'll give you 2 cookies.
Mickey Mouse.
Oh, go back to the NIT where you belong, Mickey Mouse. Y'all don't even give a shit about sports until August. I know the odds are stacked against them for the duration of their time here, but going 0 for 3 in a 3-year time span has got to be extremely painful to endure. That said, there wasn't much they could do to prepare for Jalen Petty and Christian Anderson's double-team efforts. At least you were smart enough to apply for the postseason, unlike your football brethren. Boy, Alabama was one more half of bad basketball away from becoming a massive meme in this year's run. However, a 53-point second half would be good enough to vanquish most Cinderella efforts. While Hofstra goes down to 0-5 all-time in the postseason, their run certainly made the cousin humpers scared for a minute. But the other end of the trapezoid of excellence will not go down so easily. Quite the unfortunate way to go out for the Cinderella of the regular season, but the glazing for a team that couldn't even match up against a Quad 1 squad was getting to be a little too much anyway. So say it with me, everyone. Glory be thee to the talent fee. Plus, y'all lost to UMass. You were never gonna be that guy. How come it's always y'all who keeps flirting with disaster? Wright State should feel proud of their own efforts, but Jakari White became the only reason that Virginia didn't become a meme of the year yet again. If the rest of the guys on the court vanish like that again, it won't be much longer before you too are given the big red get out button.
This is Gavin Graves elevates buries it. 2.4 away.
Moments like that hurt so much more for the teams that know they'll be lucky to make it back next season. So to have this happen to Santa Clara stings on a level that'll impact their grandkids. Them not getting that timeout in the final moments is going to leave as much of a dent in their dreams as Otega Owe. Lord almighty, Kentucky sucks. Should be of no surprise that one of the Big 12's strongest soldiers took care of business early. However, we couldn't go through this entire first round without someone feeling a little wrath from the injury bug. A severe blow to the Cyclones' dreams, as the fluidity of their team now takes a massive hit. Never has a dominating tournament win been so bad. Siena opened the floodgates for this one. They awoke the Duke of Death, and now they're playing in a much stronger capacity than before. The Horned Shitposters held their ground for the first half, but the Blue Devils eventually turned up the heat, and the Frogs disintegrated from the volcanic level eruption. Tanner Toulson's flagrant whatever the shit this was supposed to be laid the groundwork for a Duke takeover. Back to the mines of Big 12 mediocrity for you. Bill Self's GOAT status is becoming atomized as we speak. St. John's ran through them like shit through a tin horn for most of the game, but this blue blood had no interest in going down without some sort of fight. They clawed their way back in and took the game to chaos over time? Is that in the script?
This is going to be Darling. He's got to go. Darling puts it up.
Yeah, of course it isn't. Rick Pitino did say that college basketball no longer has blue bloods. He might be right. As I previously mentioned, Michael Brown's injury severely diminished the hopes of a deep run for the Cardinals. Someone needed to step up, and the only thing that did was Pat Kelsey's fraud status. Made it past the first round this time, so baby steps? They were just simply outclassed by a way better team who totally won't vanish off the face of the earth next week. Silly UCLA, leave the winning to the women's team. They're on their way to a championship. It's such a rule in college basketball where both programs can't be harmoniously great programs at the same time. Alex Caravan assisted in helping the UConn squad run over the Bruins, of which they've successfully made it further than the round of 32 this time. The refs can count their blessings for now. Typical one-seed performance here, as Utah State set themselves up as a placeholder. The talent fee was just too much to overcome, especially with Arizona getting the ludicrous amount of rebounds they got. They controlled the narrative from the start, as made clear from the results on the board. I wonder what Gerard Calhoun thinks about this predicament. Not very highly, clearly. Sorry, High Point. It was fun, but you hit your quota of one major upset a season. Now that you've taken care of that, it's time to say goodbye until next time. Arkansas continues their deep runs in the tournament courtesy of John Calipari and Darius Acuff Jr. 36 points would normally be enough of a push, but High Point did nearly put a piggy on the menu with their attempt to pull off another funny. But pig time lives on until they don't. So is it just a bulldog thing to play your worst ball whenever the lights are at their brightest? The fraud agency is asking, as now we're living in a timeline where Texas of all teams is the potential Cinderella. They've become the first team in half a decade to go from the first four to the Sweet 16. Write that down as another chance to glaze Arch Manning on SportsCenter. None of this should surprise you, but Purdue is out here doing what they do best and getting foul-balled all the way through the early rounds of the tournament. Miami didn't do any favors themselves, as Fletcher Lawyer did whatever he wanted to against their defense. Plus, going 19 of 20 from the line, that I would say would help to some extent.
Here we go. 8.9 to play. Sturts with the catch. Sturts bounce pass to the corner. Bulgaris for three. Oh!
Gentlemen, Hawkeye Nation rides again! Florida couldn't even get the last shot attempt off in time, which confirms that there's a Florida man who will be doing some crime never uttered in history, which you didn't even know was a crime tonight. Iowa dropping the defending champs sets up a legendary Corn Bowl with unimaginable expectations if Nebraska does their part. Absolute cinema. Remember when you said that being runner-up in the SEC tournament had its perks? I guess it did. First win in the tournament over 12 years, though, is nothing compared to the first win in the tournament ever. Fred Hoiberg and the Husker fanbase continue to lock in for their team, and Vandy felt the pressure all night, up until the basketball gods and their last troll.
No timeouts. Half-court heave.
Nope.
Oh!
You got barbecue back there.
One of their best seasons in school history and not even a Sweet 16 bid. You hate to see it. The only thing this matchup contributed was confirming that this just makes North Carolina look even worse off than before. Terrence Hill Jr. did his best to carry the weight, but Illinois locked in since the dance began and pretty much shut him down the entire game. Underwood's year 1 is becoming more cinema as it progresses. This might set up for some unrealistic year 2 expectations. No matter how hard you try to run or hide from it, there is nothing that can be done to counteract Batter Aggie syndrome. It'll get you at some point or another. This time it's in the form of Emmanuel Sharp, Chris Knack Jr., and pretty much every Houston player that played for them this season. Another 30-point dub. I wonder if they'll keep that momentum up. Good lord. If this is the gap between Michigan and St. Louis, I can't even imagine what the gap looks like between Georgia and mediocrity. Not really sure if there was anything that could have been done to salvage this for St. Louis in any capacity. Is there anyone that can stop Yaxel Lindenberg? Will the Billikens ever win a second round game? And most importantly, what the fuck is a Billiken? Well, if nothing else, at least they scored points in this postseason loss. They made the game look closer than it actually was. If Latrell Wrightsell and the Tide play the rest of the way like they did in that second half, another Final Four could be on the horizon. They've become one of the final beacons of the SEC, if that tells you anything. So is there just the slightest possibility that the March Rick Barnes meme is dead? He couldn't fart, much less win a game 5 years ago at this time, and now we are back in the Sweet 16 yet again off of Virginia's inability to rebound. We also took down the final perfect bracket on our way to the next round. It was a whole 40 minutes of Virginia almost finding a way to win. Be proud it wasn't to a lower quad team this time. Wait a minute. Duke is the last remaining ACC team? Already? With this loss, we can verify Kentucky basketball is the Nebraska football of Blue Bloods. Worst tourney loss since '72, and they are far more concerned with bragging about their previous titles nobody bothers to remember anymore. It's almost like half of their fans weren't born back when they got it or something. Too bad nobody cares about that or you anymore. Keep that time machine close in the meantime. I thought without Joshua Jefferson that Iowa State would struggle. Maybe that's just delayed. An entire conference's reputation rides off the imminent success of the Dukes of Death, and they are trying their hardest to carry the entirety of it on their backs. Caleb Foster did more than enough on that regard to keep St. John's far away from ruining that. Ruben Prey instant transmissioned away from the stadium and never returned because nobody ever saw him after the first half. Rick Pitino's sudden refusal to rotate buried whatever hopes there was of making it to the Elite Eight. Better to get beat by them than a bay of pigs. That exhibition match early in the year should have been enough proof for how this was going to go. Michigan State once again kept within contention of the Huskies, but never got over the hump. Terrace Reed had one of his weaker games, but they locked up Sparty on defense. UConn avenges their hockey team and continues the revenge arc. Thanks for the tip-off time, by the way. Was 2 a.m. not available? The Battle of the Cinderellas and the Corn was as much of a spectacle as advertised. The greatest anomaly of this game was that there was 0 punts through the entire thing. However, we did see a miscue close to that in the form of Nebraska having 4 players on the court on a critical 3-point play. Give them a break, it's their first time. Iowa, off that tomfoolery, now goes to the Elite Eight and solidifies their spot as the greatest meme of the season. As if the school needed extra motivation. Houston Sports! Sorry, I had to. Kind of like all your missed shots, it seemed like an open opportunity. Good chance at this point that the Cougars are never going to have that year where they break through. I've never seen an offense terminally shit themselves like I did on this day. If you ever want to beat Houston as a high seed, just score more than 60 points and you're fully set. I heard 15 minutes could save you from 15 minutes of Arkansas basketball. Simply a rumor, though. Despite Darius Acuff's efforts, the lack of any defensive effort set up Arizona for literal record numbers against the Piggies. After all, the biggest rival for Arkansas is themselves. Letting a freshman like Koya Pete dice you up like that goes to show that 1995 might be a year worth mentioning whenever the Razorbacks come up on the screen. This is exactly what happens when you play with your food for too long. The food plays you. However, Trey Kaufman-Renn kept his clutch bone all the way through the end of the game, and eventually, luck runs out for all the seeds 10 or lower.
Down to 5, Smith, shaking, bacon, Smith puts it up, no, the foul, it's good, with .7 left, Trey Kaufman-Renn has given Purdue the lead, a chance at the last shot, it's up, no good, Purdue advances.
Survive and thrive. After all, that's the name of the game. Well, guess the tide was real low for today. It's hard to really shit on Alabama for getting beat because they did put up a fantastic effort, both to get here and the game itself. Michigan had control, but not a lot up until the final moment of the game. Once Yaxel Lindenberg locks in, it's a funeral for anyone who he's up against. It was a friendly competition for crusty Dusty May and Nate Oates, but it was a massacre for Alabama's squad. Maybe if you had that G League NBA player, you might have stood a chance. Nah, I take it back, you were cooked. Well, I'm going to go ahead and admit that this was far from the reality I was expecting. Rick Barnes peaking during this stretch was a baffling turn of events. However, it sets up the Vols for a much more frightening reality. We are the final hope of the SEC, which means the entire conference is now hate watching us on our way to the Elite Eight. Shit. Cyclones can feel free to blame the injury bug, but it's back to the EF Zeros for you regardless. Let's go get 'em! Or get something for that matter. Well, safe to say this one's over. I've seen one 19-point choke job in the tournament, so no way we're due for another one of those in the same tournament. Besides, it's Duke. They're always good in the clutch. At least I think so.
Ahead, Boozer, that ball deflected and stolen by Mullins. Caravan 2 seconds. Mullins tosses it out. It's good. We're point 3.
So what do we pin the blame on here? UConn's clutch bowl or Duke's conference? Well, it's funnier for the latter, so take conference! Iowa was a phenomenal story to watch unfold. I had a great time watching their arc, however we now run into a neat little thing called reality, and it's not very kind. The offense went like a buzzer in the first half and malfunctioned against the might of the Illinois defense. And after 21 years, Illinois solidified their spot in the Final Four. There's a minor chance the Big Ten can become a victim of their own success, but nonetheless, I want to know where Bruce Pearl is at right now. We missed you a whole lot, but welcome back, Soilermakers. The difference between that and Spoilermakers can be found in between halves. First half Purdue was built like the train from the Polar Express, and the other half Purdue looked like the little brave engine that couldn't do dick. Jaden Bradley solidified why he earned Big 12 Player of the Year with this performance, as with his assistants, Arizona is back in the Final Four for the first time in a quarter century. Purdue's feelings can be summarized by this whiteboard here. And back to Payne we go. It was a fun ride, but if you know anything about Tennessee sports, then you know the ride always ends sometime before the Final Four. But I sure would have appreciated if the talent fee could have at least made it somewhat competitive. Michigan did us worse than most football losses I've ever had to witness. We didn't ask to get pistol whipped on live television like that by everyone on Michigan's roster. And speaking of rosters, there goes ours. But where's y'all's entertainment district, huh? Yeah, that's what I thought. Priorities. Hashtag everything school. You tell him, Danny. Michigan and Dusty may owe me a new pack of Seagrams. Well, I think it's becoming abundantly clear that the Huskies have taken little time off from national relevance. While the efforts of the Illini are admirable, they were far from what was needed to cross the gap that clutch ball UConn had. At least they're used to this. Seems like a reoccurring trend for them to lose in the Final Four or get beat down by UConn. One of the two is far more likely than them ever winning a natty. As just like Purdue, they are destined to be cucked by Dan Hurleyball. Missed threes, missed layups, missed opportunities across the board. Up until you're able to get your balls back, you're never going to cross the threshold to college basketball immortality. Thus, Hurley is booed back to yet another national championship. But he's going to have to battle up against these guys. So I'm not sure if they did an investigation on the Michigan sideline yet, but I think it's very needed to make sure that there isn't a Connor Stallions in sight. Zona had been playing fantastic ball up until now, but when they ran into the blue buzzsaw, everything they've done up until now, including their knowledge of basketball, suddenly vanished. The game was over when they got out of bed this morning. The only scare Michigan had on this day was in the form of Yaxel Lindenberg's ankle roll, which luckily for them, wound up not being serious. Brushing that aside, Michigan went nuclear on the Wildcats, shredding past 90 points and turning the game into a customized highlight reel. For any Zona fans who think that this result was disappointing, your literal state disagrees with you. Not like they'd have an Arizona day in the fall. Thus, the Wolverines continue their route of dominance to the greatest court of all, the Natty Court. As high stakes as this battle was for both squads, it wound up being a little less than what we were hoping for. Last year, Florida and Houston came down to the final second. Not one moment of the game looked to be out of reach for either team. However, here, every second of the game did. It was 40 minutes of the Huskies playing catch-up with the Wolverines, an infinite loop of UConn reaching for something that wasn't even within arm's distance. No matter how close they tried closing the gap, it would open back up not a moment sooner. UConn fans would be all over the internet for the next 300 days telling you about how that gap was because of the refs, but they'll refuse to elaborate on their lack of accuracy on shots. This is a learned trait after all. Even if Hurley is giving credit to ref ball for their calls, it doesn't erase years of crying about it every postseason. Stay proud of your effort nonetheless. You may look at your trophy case to avoid the reality as it is: getting dusted. Michigan gives the Big Ten their first basketball title in 25 years. But since these people all hate each other anyway, they're only going to use it for one of two things. One, a bragging tool against Ohio State, or two, a distraction for when the football team gets caught doing something illegal again. That's the neat part about all this. Now you have a modern-day natty that you don't have to justify cheating to get. You did it! Congratulations! See you during your next show, cause power to Tardaria!
Nice shot fronting inside by Powell.
Here's Hill. Step back, Jay. Oh, yeah!
He doesn't even smile.
Naturally. Up by 2. 12 seconds left.
Carolina's got to go.
Dixon. He'll drive it. He'll kick it. Trimble does.